we are in what we're calling season 2 of our podcast, although it doesn't really matter because they all just kind of get posted as they go. And we're having our very first guest, Cindy Marion, the, I guess, former owner, but the founder of MMI.
Yep.
And 32 years.
36.
Oh my god.
Okay, well, somebody needs to update their website because I read it today. You're on some consulting
1986.
board.
So what is that? Yeah. Is that 30?
I'm not going to do the math, but I trust you. You know how long
16.
you ran the agency.
That's 36 years. Yeah.
And what was the other thing I was going to say about my introduction I had for you? Oh, and my mentor. Basically, I think I'm always impressed by people, and that's going to be one of my questions for you, Cindy, to start out. I'm always impressed with people that are as busy as you, have so much on their plate that I think I randomly messaged you on LinkedIn or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like how many years ago? Mm-hmm. 4, 5, 3, I don't know. Mm-hmm. A while.
Been a while.
It's been a long time. And I just said, hey, I'd love to talk to you and learn from you. And you actually wrote back, and we had coffee a couple weeks later, and now we have coffee fairly regularly, and you give me sage wisdom on how to run an agency, and you're so kind. And actually that's a good segue to my first question. If you don't mind, Cindy. Mm-hmm. Is that all right?
Yeah, whatever.
Right. How do you decide when to help someone, knowing the time that it takes away from other parts of your life?
I think it's probably more important to decide not to help someone, because you really should try to help everybody as much as you can, in my opinion, because lots of people poured into me years and years and years ago and still do. I also think we all owe a commitment to the industry here in Houston, all of us who are in positions where we can impact that. And I felt always like anytime I could do something that elevated the industry in Houston, that would be good for everybody. So besides the fact that it's always, and also my experience in life has been that every time I think I'm helping someone else, it ends up helping me. Years ago, we had a lot of people requesting to be interns at MMI, like high school students and college students in the summer. And it was hard because we weren't financially, you're always in a position where you're watching your payroll and your dollars and all of that. And so it was kind of, I don't know, but I don't want to say no, because these young people need to see and blah, blah, blah. And so then you hire 6 of them, and then a client says, oh, I heard you're hiring interns. Can you have my son or daughter? And you say yes. And then you've got 8, and then you're looking at the numbers. And then all of a sudden some client says, hey, we have this project, and it's going to take a lot of blah, 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 blah. And you say these kids are going to learn a lot by doing that, and then it's going to be, and then it ends up being profitable. So I kind of always felt like sometimes those stretches to help people always paid off as a blessing for me. And so the relationship with you has been a blessing for me. So there you go.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. Well, Brenna and Rachel, who are sitting right here right now, were part of our very first apprenticeship program, which was just kind of an idea we had where we thought, let's not just do internships, but let's have people get paired up. Specifically, like with a full-time employee would get an apprentice, and we did it with I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 people did it, and we ended up getting some extraordinarily talented people who, after years of doing that and then working kind of part-time and things like that, and now we have Brenna and Rachel, who are really, really talented and just kind of the future. I think I see them as like the future of 5+8, and we'd never really know who they were if we hadn't done that program.
Well, that's another asset. I mean, there are people at MMI right now who have been there 25 years who started out as high school interns, and that's, so you can see people that are talented and excited and enthusiastic and ethical and all those things. And you just go, wow, this is a blessing. So yeah, it's good.
And it's
25 years, you said. That's crazy.
Yeah, there are a lot of people at MMI who've been there that long. Or
sometimes
longer.
it's like I wonder. It's like whenever I came to here, I didn't realize how much I'd love it, and it's amazing because it's like, oh, what do I do now in my career? I want to stay here, but I also want to grow. And if 5+8 also give me the opportunity, but that's also scary. It's like, do I stay here? Do I go? what do I do? Well, obviously I'm going to stay.
I'm kidding.
But it's nice to know that people can also find their way so easily. Like people who have been there for 25 years, and they've loved it. And I mean,
when you can grow and develop in a company that's growing and developing. And so, and also talent doesn't go away. When I first started out, I thought, okay, I'm only successful at what I do because I work really, really, really hard. And so if I'm up at 2 a.m. working, if I'm up at 4 a.m. in the working, that's why I'm doing well. And at some point I kind of determined, no, wait a minute, I have some things I bring to the table that are really good. So I think sometimes people are always trying to strategize how they get to the top, right? I feel like if you keep swimming and you've got some gifts and talents and you just keep doing it, it doesn't matter where you're doing it. If you're doing it and you're joyful doing it and you enjoy it, isn't that a lot of what we should be after? And as long as you keep growing and given opportunities to enhance your experience and your talents and growing those, then, why
all
change?
as well. Yeah.
Change doesn't always, it's not always required to move ahead. So, a lot of people at MMI found that to be a long-term career. The girl I was talking about, she's never worked anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, our creative director, who's not here today, she her first job out of college was here, and it was our first employee, and that was 8 years ago. And I don't think Sarah has any intentions of going anywhere. But I mean, I understand. In fact, the people who seem, I don't want to say that always, but some of the people that are most content here are people who have had multiple other jobs, and then they've ended up here and they've seen what it's like out there. Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of companies that don't care about people, frankly.
Well, and that's what I had a young friend a couple weeks ago who wanted to have coffee, and she was talking about how she was thinking about changing a job. And I said, well, so what is it you don't like about your job? I love my job. Then why are you, So I think sometimes the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. People think that, but I've had many, many, many employees too who have left, gone somewhere else, and then came back to MMI, and I was, happy for that because I wanted them to be, they were just as loved by us as we were loved by them. We just needed a little separation for them to realize that. So it was okay.
I've got a call with someone like that on Tuesday, and not that she's going to try to come back here, but she was here. Her first job was here. She worked for many years. She did a great job. She left, I think, because she just needed to see what else was out there. And she's had a couple jobs now. And we're going to talk next week about, she said, look, I'm not looking for a job. I just kind of want to check in with you and see what you think about what I'm doing and where I'm going. Because, she saw what's out there and she probably thought, this isn't that great.
Well, I think a goal as a leader or as an employee is always to respect and be respected. You want to be in a place where you can respect those you work with and you can be respected by those who you work with. So I think, if you get that, it's not always the way it is.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I'm going to get your mic.
No,
I just heard a couple times where we don't want to miss anything.
Okay.
We don't want to miss any of
All right.
these nuggets.
I'm close.
I've got a couple more questions, but if we didn't exactly schedule this exactly how, by order. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask Cindy before I ask another one? Raquel, Brenna, Lise? Stop being faux shy.
I guess my question is, how did you know that you wanted to do this? A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I want to start my own business. When did you know that? And how did you know that you wanted that to come into fruition? To
be in advertising or start my own business, or both?
Both, I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean, when I was in third grade, I was writing a book,
Oh, third grade.
On a stormy night. I probably have it in some box in the attic somewhere, hoarder and all that. But so I thought I wanted to be a writer, and that's what I always kind of wanted to be. And then I got to college and did some internships at different places and really kind of firmed up that advertising was where I wanted to apply my creative skills. I also had the dichotomy of parents who absolutely, my dad was in computer science back when, IBM computers took a whole room, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And my mom was a chemist. So my creativity was not particularly appreciated as much in my family. So my mother always said, the more math the more money you make. And so I had a lot
wow.
of, yeah, that's what
I
she
never
said.
heard that before.
Yeah, and I believe that is true.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see the being right.
And so I was always a big believer in pleasing my parents. And so I took a lot of math and was good at that as well. So I appreciated that. So I appreciated always the data behind advertising. So I kind of felt like I had been gifted because of those factors with a little bit of a combination of data and creativity. So when I got out of college, I decided that to be in advertising was what I wanted to do, but I wanted to focus not only on the writing part, but also on the kind of the data-driven creative solutions. And so that's how I kind of started off in advertising, was feeling like that's what I wanted to do. And then I loved advertising very much. Didn't have any goal or aspiration of starting my own company. But I think there's a book called The E-Myth, and then there's a revised version of that called E-Myth Revisited. I've recommended it to you before. E standing for entrepreneurial, this was before, E stood for other things. And, but the guy has it pretty right. He says most people start a business because they have an entrepreneurial seizure, where they realize that they're working really, really hard, and they decide, why shouldn't I do this for myself? In my situation, there was also kind of a catalyst in that the company that I was working for, managing the Houston office, and they hired me to do that at 24, which no wonder that they're out of business now, because I look back and think I didn't know what I was doing. But we raised the Houston office up to be one of the bigger ones that they had, so I felt like I gave to them in that. But then they made a decision that I couldn't really completely support. I felt like it wasn't going to allow us to serve our clients very well. So I told them, I can't stay if you decide to do that. And so I got a FedEx package one Saturday morning saying, Monday, we want you to make this revision. They wanted me to put our account service people on commission. So I said, okay, I'll take care of that. And this is my resignation. Well, that was 1986, and the economy was terrible. So all of a sudden, I looked at my husband and went, I just quit my job. And no one's hiring and all of that. So I kind of decided, you know what? I'm just going to try to start my own company. And then everybody said, it's 1986. The economy is terrible. Why would you do that? Well, because I quit my job. So, maybe that was meant to be. And I figured if I could make it then, I would make it anytime. And I figured if I failed, I could blame it on the economy, which gave me a little bit of personal. That. Yeah. You should blame it on things. I was really thinking that shows my character, right? And so that's how it started. So that's what put me into an entrepreneurial phase. But I did have a background in business, and obviously, so that helped. And
I love that. Yeah, you've put all of your little pieces together as you've grown, which I admire, because I feel like I came from the same thing. It's like I want to do computer science, I want to do pharmacy, I want to do architecture, and now as I grow, it's like, oh, those little pieces can kind of piece together and make something else.
Yeah. Well, something else as a young person in the business, I would encourage you to know that one of the things I love about advertising is over the course of my career, I worked with so many different brands in so many different industries and so many different businesses that I found that if I was ever at a cocktail party and talking to people, I don't care what business they were in, I probably would say, oh, I know about oil blowout preventers. I know about pumps. I know about pharma. I know about, Olay beauty products. I know about Gillette razors, so you eventually know so much about so many industries. So that's kind of a fun thing about being in advertising, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you can fulfill a lot of interests.
Yeah. That's what we always, the big thing now that they tell you about your business is that you need to niche down. And I get it. I see the value in it, and we probably could do a better job of doing that sometimes. But I certainly like working with different clients, and I don't want to work with every dental office in Houston and be the dental agency. I think I would be very bored doing that. And it is fun to learn about. We're constantly learning about new products, new clients, new industries.
We started with a couple of big healthcare companies, and that was scary for me because one time I remember speaking at a luncheon and they introduced me as the owner of the largest healthcare agency in the Southwest. And I was going, okay, what? And the reason I didn't want to do that was because it's the economy, having started the business when the economy is down, the economy has fluctuations with industries. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
The banking industry can be up or it can be down. The healthcare industry is pretty solid and stable most of the time, but there are periods of time where that doesn't do well as well. And the oil and gas business goes up and down. So if you just stick with one, you're going to have a lot more extreme ups and downs. I decided early on. And I also think you learn things in one industry that you can apply to other industries. So I always appreciated and wanted strategically to be diverse in the industries that we represent.
That's a great take on it, and that's something I've never thought about. Maybe it's it's boom or bust when you do that, and I definitely think that applying strategies. I mean, I just had a call this morning about a very technical chemical. It's a chemistry client, and they're dealing with biochemicals and things like that. And he was like, how do we get our message out in an interesting way? And I applied some really weird ideas that we do on TikTok that would apply to them. Yeah. And he was like, oh, we can do that? I'm like, yeah, why not? Just because he said, well, we're serious. I'm like, well, I mean, people still have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Even if they're biochemists, it's not that they don't like to laugh. They still like to laugh.
Yeah. Innovation happens when you start to learn things from other people that are not necessarily in the same lane you are in. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Mata, you want to ask a question?
Is there any particular memory or something that's memorable to you from being at MMI Agency? Something.
So many things.
I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I was young in my career, there are things that I never anticipated I would get to do, which has been a pleasure. The lots and lots and lots of people that have worked at MMI and ended up doing things that they love even after they left there. And you see people in the industry where you go, okay, I don't take any credit for what they've accomplished except for just knowing that they were part of, I sit in the shade of trees I did not plant is what I often say, because I just have been able to enjoy that. So that's been cool. And then there's lots of things like, the day our office flooded, the time a hurricane came through and took the roof off, the time that, trying to lead through those kinds of tragedies is hard. Economic downturns, losing big clients, all those things you remember having to rise and seem calm and be a good leader in the midst of chaos. Those things stick with you, but also as blessings because you've grown in your ability to lead through them. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff. But I could go on for about 4 hours to talk about that.
I knew you were going to say people. Yeah. I knew that people was going to be in there somewhere.
Well, people are the deal.
Yeah, people are the deal.
Mm-hmm. That's a very sophisticated, educated. I bet people from Harvard don't ever say people are the deal.
I mean, but it's so spot on. And I think at this something on our website I wrote a long time ago that's still on there. And it's on our about page. And it basically said, when we started the company, we wanted to see if treating people well and having them feel good about themselves would actually be a good business practice. And we didn't know if that was actually true when we started, because I didn't know if that really worked, because I never read anything about that. Now it's the thing. Everything's culture. Mm-hmm. But 10 years ago it wasn't. And 30 years ago, it certainly wasn't. It was all about bottom line, and it wasn't about culture. It wasn't cool to take care of people and treat people well. And now it's the secrets to success is treating people well and everything. And so you were way ahead of that, I think.
Well, and I think one of the things that we can't do is to put a perspective of perfection, because human beings are human. And so both directions of a relationship have to have some grace for behavior because I can tell you that there are people who would say I made a decision at some point that they didn't agree with. And so that sometimes will tell certain people will say, well, okay, I didn't agree with what she did about that. So I'm out of here and I'm mad,
Right.
And what I worry about where we are right now, because I'm all about people, but I also get lots of calls from young people who say, hey, can you have coffee with me? I want to talk about my job. I'm working in a toxic environment. Mm-hmm. And so I'll say, well, okay, well, tell me about that, and they say, well, my boss hasn't talked to me in 2 weeks. I said, sometimes that's a good sign. That means your boss thinks you're doing a good job. He's got other fish to fry, or she's got other fish to fry, so so that doesn't mean that they don't care about you or love you because
Right.
they're busy and things are going fast and furious. So I do worry sometimes that we've gotten too, like we're looking for a perfect nest. Well, there's no perfect nest.
No, that's a great point. It does seem like sometimes I write a lot of stuff on LinkedIn about culture and positivity and treating people well. And it always does the best. It always gets liked and shared. And at a certain point, I kind of feel like, okay, I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture about this because this isn't always reality. And so I actually wrote a counter post the other day that was like, your worth, not your human worth, but when you talk about like people always like, well, get paid what you're worth, get paid what you're worth. And I said, you're worth what people will pay you, not your human worth. I'm going to be very clear about that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to your salary, you can tell yourself all day long, but if you're just out of college and you have no experience and you want to roll into a new place and say, I demand this because this is what I'm worth. It's like, well, you're actually going to be worth whatever someone's willing to pay you.
Well, and what you generate to the bottom line too, because businesses, I always kind of thought, I wish I had a tree out in the back of MMI that grew money.
Right.
Because it would make it easy to give everyone exactly what they wanted at every time they wanted it.
Right.
But you can't do that as a business owner because then you're not looking out for the team because you got to keep the business positive cash flow generating to be able to continue to pay people and have them rely on that very stably. So anyway, it's a challenge.
And I think that I've been extraordinarily impressed with my team and being able to talk to them about that and saying, hey, here's where we are financially. And it's, sometimes it's great. Those are great conversations and everyone's stoked and you're getting raises. And then there's times when it's not. And I'm always impressed and encouraged by their response and their maturity to saying, hey, thanks for telling me this. Now I know where we are, and I can, maybe I can buckle down, or maybe I can reach out to a new client, or maybe I can do this or that to help out. It's pretty wonderful when you open up and show them, what's really going on.
Well, and that communication that you're doing is also really good. One of the things I really feel like is important is that you sit with your employees on a regular basis and say, here's where we are. This is what's happening in the business, so that you can understand, because also people will go to the goal that you set, and if they know what that goal is, but communicating kind of this is where we're headed, so everybody knows. So in their day-to-day activity, doing whatever it is they do to contribute to the team, they can make good decisions that lead everyone towards that goal. But also when there's troubling times, which every business, people think that success goes a straight line up. Mm-hmm. No, it's squiggly. Mm-hmm. There's ups and downs and all of that. So if people understand that, they're better set to embrace, where you are. So good for you that you're doing that.
Well, thanks. You're one of the reasons why I've run all these questions by you before. So.
Oh yeah, I think Adam's done a really great job of that. And that's one thing I love about 5+8, the transparency of that. Because a lot of big companies, they won't say anything. And you're always scared to ask or scared to talk about these things. But I absolutely love that. So Adam, you're doing a great job.
Thanks, Rachel.
Well, it's important. So kudos.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got another one for you. This is kind of like, so right now everyone is talking about how fast things are changing, right? The rapidness of change, and it's happening. So how did you deal with change? And maybe, obviously this is a different time, but you also dealt with the introduction of the internet.
Yeah.
So sometimes I do think there's a rapid change going on, but change is always happening. Mm-hmm. And so how do you deal with that change, whatever it may be, and knowing when to innovate and pivot, or whatever the phrase is, or when to say, hey, this is a trend and I'm not going to fall victim to this.
Right.
And how do you do that?
Well, I'd love to say I had a crystal ball that told me all those things, and that's why I think we were able to maneuver that, but I didn't. But I also believe that curiosity is really important. When I hired people, I would always try to gauge how curious were they, because I think change is embraced by people more when they're curious about what might be in the future and not afraid of it. Mm-hmm. I also think the bottom line basics of marketing is about figuring out what consumers want and making sure you're providing something that meets that need or problem that they experience that they need to solve. So I feel like that never changes.
Right.
So as long as you kind of consider that stable point, that's what we're always looking to. And then all these tools and tricks that we have to make those things happen and to connect the person with the need with the product that solves that need, that is really what continues to change. And so trying just to be sure that people were motivated on my team and that I was motivated to continue to seek, now when the internet came along, I wasn't around. So let me be clear. I was not around when television came on the scene. So, but I knew enough to go back and look when TV came into the picture, what happened? Because before that there was just radio, right? And so you think, okay, how did people handle that change? Did it eliminate radio? No. Did it change radio? Yes. Mm-hmm. Did it? But things still evolved and continued. So knowing that that I wasn't the first person to experience an industry change and looking at how people had come through it before was helpful in not feeling fear about those changes. But really, it's just a matter of trying to adapt and continuing to try to encourage your people not to. Now, the last 10 years have been harder than the introduction of the internet. I'm not positive why, but I feel like a lot of people in our industry who have worked for 25 years have dug their feet in and said, this is not going to be an eternal change. Oh, yes, it is. So I feel like that, I think it's an ongoing challenge to keep looking at the future as an opportunity and not, a peril.
Yeah. So the idea of the curiosity and having the buzzword of like growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. I do think that's one of the things that's really hard for me with team members and probably with myself too, is when I see that I've run into kind of a fixed mindset and someone who's unwilling or unable to see what's actually happening versus what they want the reality to be. And now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm definitely a victim. I mean, I definitely guilty of this. So being able to say, yeah, like, sure, let's try it. And I think that's really important.
Well, I mentioned my math background, and I remember being very proud of my skills, being able to compute gross impressions on radio and television, like with mathematical models, not using the computer to do that.
With radio and television?
Yes.
How do
but I'll teach you if you want to know. But hear me say, it's not a particularly gifted skill now, right? I mean, it's not like anybody's really giving me big medals or, lauding me as a professional. So you have to give up on what you were proud of doing 10 years ago because it's no longer relevant to what's happening now. And so you got to continue to just try to fine tune your skills in today's environment. And that's hard for a lot of people.
No, I mean, we're having that conversation right now because our firm is, I think, one of the things that we're really excellent at and top whatever 1% is brand development and designing just beautiful, thoughtful brands. Mm-hmm. And kudos to us. That's great. However, what's happening is there's a lot of other people that are really good at it too. And the brands out there, when you start looking at all the new consumer packaged goods and all the things that are being launched, they all look really good. And they the good ones, obviously, they're really good. And I'm starting to see, okay, well, this is going to be a harder thing. We used to be very clearly the best at this, and there's just so much competition that this is getting harder and harder to be the best at. And so how do we handle that? And how do we shift or add or whatever, because I don't think that we're going to be able to just hang our hats on this for the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah. And I don't think, this is just my opinion, other people could disagree for sure, but I think if you decide to choose a niche to be specializing in, like you're going to be a branding agency, that's it. But you really do have to continue to try to compete in that marketplace and make it you're the best. But I feel like that for me, it was always kind of a decision to integrate all of the different specializations within our industry into one offering, but that in and of itself too is hard until you get to be a certain scale,
right? Because
you can't have the best professionals in every, and so that's kind of as you go along, you can do that better.
Yeah, I remember asking this question one time, and it was one of the few times you disagreed with me or challenged me, because usually I say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. You're like, yeah, definitely, Adam, you're on the right track. Keep going. And then this time I was saying, I was like, I really want my agency not to get past like 10 people. I want to keep it small, and that's what I want it to be. And I just think that we're going to be strong if we're small. And you said, okay, maybe, but your clients are probably going to force you to grow. And if your clients are good clients and you want to serve them well, and they come to you and say, hey, Adam, we got this whole new service offering. We want you guys to lead it, but it's going to take X number of hours and time. You have to either decide that you're going to do that with them, or you're going to say no, and they're going to go to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And those are the tough decisions you have to make.
Yeah. I almost feel like you're either growing or you're shrinking. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to stay the same. And I loved. There was a time whenever I could write a handwritten note every week to every employee, but you get to you have 50 or 100 and 150 or whatever, and you're going, yeah, I can't do that anymore. So that growth is scary when you are a people-oriented person, but I almost think you either grow or you shrink. Yeah. But again, other people could disagree with me about that. But
yeah, no, it was eye opening, certainly. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any other questions? As we, I guess, I don't know, what time is it? Okay, yeah. What time did we start at 10? 10-ish? Yeah, okay. Well, that went fast. We usually make them about 40 minutes.
Yeah, well,
it's good chat.
I'm long-winded. Sorry.
You are not long-winded. You no, you are not at all.
Don't ask me a question.
You're not at all. Maybe we just close with if you kind of have one, because this is our first guest. I'm going to do kind of this series, and what I think we'll title this one is about leadership, because I found you to be an incredibly kind and thoughtful and successful leader. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. I mean, you how many people were at your agency when you left?
150. Maybe
yeah.
100.
So you built your agency up to 150 people. You also owned the building. So you purchased the building that your team was in. So you were also a bit of a real estate mogul in your own way. And so you are like, I've always kind of found you in this disguise as this sweet little lady who's actually a total badass businesswoman. So you're kind of undercover in that way. And so I don't want to let you get away with underselling what an impressive business person you are. So
that's way too kind.
It's not. It's just facts. But I would ask that maybe in closing, if you were kind of doing it all over again, and you were kind of starting, and you were, let's say you're Brenna and Rachel and you're in your early 20s, and you're thinking about starting something. It doesn't have to be a business even, but starting anything that matters. What would be the little nugget you would try to leave with them on how to do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly think there's lots that we've talked about, like valuing your people, communicating to them, being honest whenever you could, give honesty, even in feedback, because sometimes people don't want to hear constructive feedback. But I would try to explain to people that, look, if I didn't value you, I wouldn't, because no one likes conflict. I mean, anybody who says they do, I want to go, I don't know about you. But I think, so nobody wants to sit down and say, hey, you could do this better, because out of fear for the fact that that's going to affect your relationship. So you really value people when you enable them to grow and you give them honest feedback based on your experience. Doesn't mean, and then you're, as a recipient of that feedback, your job is to say, is any of this true? Do I feel like this honest feedback given from this person, do I feel like it's true? Because sometimes people say, you do this, and you're going, oh, I don't think that's true at all. So in a self-awareness and responsibility to yourself, you have to take that feedback and say, is it true? What can I do with it? So that's one thing. I feel like that's really important, and being transparent about where the company's going, where you're going, where your goals are, trying to find out what your employees want to do 5 years, 10 years from now. Can I make sure that this nest provides that opportunity for them? Sometimes you can't. And sometimes the company shifts and pivots because of things change, and you go, we don't have space for this many traditional PR people. We have to have more digital PR people,
Right.
and that's a different skill set that you don't have. So those kind of things are important business decisions, but also being kind in the people to do it. But one of the things that I wish I would have done better, and this is probably my biggest, maybe not, but to say anything's your biggest or best. I try to avoid those superlatives, but certainly as a regret, is I didn't take enough time. Like, we would accomplish something big, and instead of taking a breath to celebrate it, I'd be going, okay, but now this big thing is next, right? This big thing is next. So I think you got to take a few minutes here and there to just celebrate the view of where you've been and what you've accomplished. And I was always kind of focused on where we're going, always. So I would always suggest to anyone who has a career to build as opposed to a career to look back on, to take the moments to just savor the successes. Because when you get a new client or you launch a new brand and you're very proud of it, celebrate it. Because I wish I would have done that for my people and for myself. It would have meant probably a big deal. So I wish I would have done that.
That's fair.
Do that.
Do
Do that.
Done.
Yes, thank you. I want you to come back and show me some of those celebrations.
Cindy, as I knew would be, this has been incredibly insightful and really enjoyable. And I'm so grateful for you and for all the people that you have helped in your career. I think that, I think legacy is a little overrated as a term you hear a lot, but I do think that if, in terms of a legacy, the only thing that really matters is how you left the people that you met, and if you help them get a little bit better or feel a little bit better, and that seems to be your legacy. And so I think you should be incredibly proud of that.
Oh, thank you. And good work y'all are doing. So onward and upward,
That's right.
onward and upward.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.